Knowledge without identity alignment creates stagnation. Identity gap is the real issue, not ignorance. Listen, there's a knowledge and an identity mismatch. People think that if they know more, they'll do better. That's not always the case. And the saying goes, if you know better, you should do better. But that's not always true. What actually is true is the moment your identity aligns, everything else aligns. The issue is people think that they know better, they do better. You know to go work out. You know to eat better. You know not to spend so much money. You know to invest your money. You know you should groom yourself. You know a lot of these things. Do you do it? I didn't think so. The issue is not knowledge, it's identity. There's an illusion of learning that creates change, and that's not what actually happens. The truth is, behavioral resistance is an identity protection. You resist doing what you know you should be doing because an old identity is in control of you, telling you this is what you're supposed to be or what you're supposed to do. This is what you're supposed to think. This is what you're supposed to feel. And then you get the results of that identity. The identity you want to have thinks, feels, behaves, and lives a different way, but you're not embodying that. So, how do we close the identity gap? You have to literally understand what the identity loop looks like. There's a loop, there's a cue, there's a lens in which you see yourself as, and then that lens creates your thoughts, emotions, actions. Those create results. Those results either reinforce or update the lens that you saw through earlier, so that the next time you get the cue, you either perform the same way or differently. You need to stop not at the cue, but at the lens in which you see yourself as, and change that right there before you go into the thoughts, before you go to the emotions, before you go to the actions, before you go to anything else. Change the identity you have, and everything else will follow through. Just reading my notes real quick. So, realignment practices. I just gave you one. The other one is an identity audit. Every day, write down what you're supposed to be doing, and then get a blank piece of paper, write down the times of the day, and write down what you actually did for the day. If you did what you're supposed to do, great, you're on the right track. If you didn't do what you're supposed to do, Now, if you did what you're supposed to do, but it's not in alignment with your identity that you're trying to become, your ideal self, then you still aren't in alignment with that, and it doesn't count, right? So you need to write down the time of the day, start at the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep, and either do 15-minute counts, 30-minute counts, or an hour count, and write down exactly what you did. You'll be surprised at what actually is in alignment with your ideal self and what's in alignment with your real self, your current self, your conditioned self. All right, so how do you sustain congruence? One, every day is not about updating the system, because if that was the case, software updates would update all programs, would update all computers. But sometimes the operating system is incompatible with the software update. An old piece of hardware cannot handle new software. It's just not possible. You need new hardware for that, new updates for that, okay? So the first thing you need to keep in mind is that your identity first decision is how you're going to make your life. It's how you're going to make your decisions. It's how you're going to change everything. Because if you don't make decisions based off your identity, you're not going to be intentional. You're not going to be ideal. You're not going to be conscious. You're not going to be controlled. Someone else is going to be guiding your patterns. You don't want that. Ask yourself these two questions. What do I know but don't embody? What do I know but don't embody? And two, why am I resisting execution? Why am I resisting execution? I'll say that again. I don't know if I said it right. Why am I resisting execution? When you ask yourself those two questions, you'll get a clearer understanding of why you're not doing what you're supposed to do, and why you're not in line with your identity, and what you actually have to do to move forward. The lie is information creates transformation. That's a lie. It's a misconception. It's a misnomer. People believe the more info, better knowledge, means you should do better, transform. Not true. The realization is that change begins when your identity aligns, not where knowledge increases. Change begins when identity aligns, not where knowledge increases. Okay? So what I want you to do for today, before you go home, before you like, subscribe, and share, before you do any of that, I want you to identify one gap in your area of life today. One gap in your ideal self, between your real self and your ideal self. What is one gap that you have? If you want to share that with the comments down below, by all means, go ahead. If you don't, go grab a journal. Make sure you write it down. Oh, make sure you write it down, okay? And understand where you need to grow and how you're going to grow. That's all I have for today, people. Thank you for tuning in. As always, stay blessed and stay beautiful. Peace and love.